Bismillah. First of all, I would say that sometimes it can seem to be really overwhelming and overpowering what needs to be done. And then what we do both spiritually and socially, we set the bar so high for ourselves that we end up just feeling that we're failing all the time. So what I would say is about being realistic about yourself. And as we already heard, the more you know yourself, the more you know your Lord. So therefore, honesty with yourself and your situation and what you can manage. You can obviously have your views about the bigger world and whatever, and we should always be challenging ourselves about the bigger picture, but ultimately we have to see where we are at. And I think the challenge for Muslim women is I think it's the same for men. I don't think it's different, but of course the emphasis may be a different thing, because believe me, in my work I speak to a lot of Muslim men. I've done a lot of workshops with both men and young Muslim men and children, and I don't really think there's any difference in the need between men and women. It just possibly priorities might be slightly different, because men are equally suffering mental ill health. They don't talk about it, but Muslim men are suffering tremendously from mental ill health issues. They don't look after their health, they don't communicate with each other. Believe me, I've been to more meetings and I've had hot dinners, and they just say all these things at meetings. As soon as they go out, nobody listens to each other. I've just been from a Muslim country, and everybody talks but nobody listens. And everybody complains and nobody does anything, right? So what I would say is that the challenges for both men and women, see where you are. For example, in some of the work we've done with our organisation, what we say to women, be gentle with yourself. Don't be harsh on yourself. And for example, let's say Ramadan is coming, if we want to give that as a sort of motivation for us. If you are from a family where the husband expects to eat fresh chapati 3 times a day, fresh food, this, that and the other, don't necessarily, depending on your situation, completely suddenly say, no, we're going vegetarian during Ramadan. I would say, cut out some of the things. Maybe you don't have to eat chapati 3 times a day, maybe you get pita bread, maybe you do something. Do it so that, in a sense, that you don't get attacked, but you've made the change. I would recommend that. I've seen that work, that you make the changes slowly so that you then don't get extra pressure put on yourself. And then you empower yourself to have more space. And particularly I found over the years for myself, I always made Ramadan as the marker to say, inshallah, this Ramadan I'm going to focus on this one thing for myself. And you have 30 days to say, I'm going to work really hard on that one thing, which might be, I'm going to focus better on my prayers, I'm going to be in the moment and concentrate, right? And I, maybe have to not do as much cleaning, maybe allow the house to be untidy, allow the washing up to pile up, right? You have to let go of some things in order to do some other things. So I think every woman here is different, and you have to see what it is that you have to do. That's at a personal level. At a social level, you have to make your choices where you're at, because we have the challenge of realigning our own spiritual compass as well as dealing with society problems, right? If you are somebody who is suffering at the moment and have problems, and we've heard the story, it's a lonely place, it's difficult, and there aren't the support structures there for Muslim women, for example, but you have to go where you can. Right? And I would say, if you feel like you're spiritually dying, socially dying, go and get help wherever you can get it.
The topic that we are discussing about, we're talking a lot about women and empowering women, but don't forget that a lot of our fallback, or a lot of the times when we're not successful, it's because of us. It's not because of men, and we can't blame men or blame the husbands for the things that we are being lazy about, or we are not thinking, okay, I should go out and do this. That is a good point. Sister Aisha, do you have anything else to?
I think Humera has covered most of it. I think the key to it is not to spread yourself too thin. Being able to spin lots of plates as mothers we do anyway, and we can do that in the outside world as well. And like you were saying, the lack of support that's out there, find the people that are willing, and then be able to delegate and share that work, because the last thing you want to do is especially if you're an activist, especially if you want to make a change, what happens is you automatically think, right, I'll do this, I'll do this, I'll do this, and then what you end up doing, which I've done many times, is you burn yourself out. So it's about self-care as well, and being able to say, actually, I'll pick one thing, I'll take two things, and I'll just focus on them, and I will work hard at that one thing or two things. Because at the end of the day, the society is everybody's responsibility, not just ours. So I think being able to say, okay, do you know what am I good at? What can I do? What difference can I make? And then focus on that, and then take that out into the society and be able to make that difference, inshallah.
Just given that you've asked the question in the context of the community, I think there's three things to think about. One is, if you're trying to be a disruptor, that is to say, disrupt negative norms, or if you're trying to be a builder, or you're trying to be an agent for change, you can't wait for permission. And I mean you need permission from your teachers and from the elders. That's very important, because we believe in that. But you can't wait for permission from just the kind of general community, because they'll never give it to you. And if you're waiting for people to be pleased with what you're doing, or waiting for people to kind of like support you, you're going to be waiting for a really long time. And in that regard, I remember the story of Juha, who's a famous character in Arabic literature. He was riding a donkey, part of the expression, and they passed by a group of people, and somebody sees him riding the donkey, and they say, why is he riding the donkey and his kid is walking? He should let the kid ride. So he gets off. Then the kid rides the donkey, and then the dad is walking. They pass by another group of people, and they say, why is the kid riding the donkey? The dad is walking. So they both get off the donkey, then they're just walking by the donkey. And they pass by another group of people, like, what a bunch of idiots, why doesn't one of them get on the donkey? So I always remember that story because, like, you know, as the Arabs say, people's pleasure is an unattainable end. So I'm saying that just to remind you and remind me that, like, it can't be about popularity. So if you're going to bring about change in the community, be okay with that. The second thing I would say is don't belittle any amount of good you're able to do, even if it is, you know, small, and especially if they're consistent contributions to the greater good. And another story in that regard is this boy who's on the beach and the starfish. You guys know starfish? Yeah. You guys call them starfish? Yep. Yeah. I think they have a new name now. Starfish. But they had been washed up on the shore, and this boy was trying to like save them. So he's picking up starfish and he's throwing them back in the ocean. And this man comes up to me and says, "What are you doing?" He says, "I'm trying to save the starfish." He said, "Well, there's like 3 miles of beach. But you're never going to be able to save all of them." So he picked up one more and he threw it in the water. He said, "There goes one." And the point being that, like, if you can impact anybody's life positively, if you can bring about even small incremental change, be okay with that and be thankful to Allah. And then the third and final thing I would say is think long term. Like, think long term. A lot of times we want change to happen. You know, the famous activists, what do we want? Whatever. When do we want it? Now! This is kind of the chant, at least in America. This is kind of, you know. So often it's like, what do we want? Empowered women leadership. When do we want it? As soon as possible, but we have to be honest about the process that takes, you know, time to build communities. And anybody who's been in community work will tell you that it takes a really long time. And most often, the big openings come after a lot of sacrifice. And I'll tell you a story in that regard as well. My father, who's an African-American, worked at a corporation called Lockheed, which is unfortunately a big defense contractor in the States. And he worked there in the 1960s and 70s while there was a lot of protests happening on college campuses across the States for black student rights. And while that was happening, he was part of a group of people who went to the leadership of Lockheed, the corporate leadership, and demanded that Lockheed support a series of demands, but one of them was that there would be funding from the company given to sponsor black students in historically black colleges for engineering, that there would be scholarship given from the corporation. This is whatever, 1970s, maybe late 60s. Fast forward 2014, he was at breakfast with a friend who said, "Oh, my son just got accepted to Hampton College, which is a historically black college, and he has a full rent scholarship from Lockheed." He's a black American student. And he said, "You're probably not going to believe me, but I was part of the team that demanded that corporation give funding to black engineering students at historically black colleges 30-something years ago." So that's what I mean, is that like you're working now and you're okay with the fact that, and maybe future generations that benefit from the changes that you're trying to bring about. When we saw our sister embrace Islam right now, you know, alhamdulillah, was inclusive, people brought gifts. What we're seeing in the States is that as we've tried to make safe space for people as they embrace Islam, people are now bringing their families with them to attend their shahada that are not necessarily embracing Islam. And then that's becoming a norm now that people are doing kind of on their own, whereas in my generation that was like completely unheard of. It wasn't even imaginable because a safe space wasn't provided. You provide a safe space, you become a people-centered organization, trends begin to develop that will hopefully have long-term impact in terms of, you know, shifting norms. So I hope that makes sense. Be okay with being a disruptor. Don't wait for people's pleasure. Try to be consistent and don't belittle any good. And then finally, think about the long term. I hope that helps. Wallahu a'lam.
Just adding to the long-term thing, I think one thing we need to kind of keep in our mindset is that when you're doing khidmah of the deen, when you are serving the deen, it's not for you. It's not so you see the fruits of it. So it's doing it and you're sacrificing your work and yourself for the future. It's for the future. And that's what khidmah is about, isn't it? Just generally serving people isn't about you. It isn't about what you see. It isn't about your reward. It's about humbling yourself down, having that humility and thinking, I need to do something because, you know, I need to serve. And that's what we need to have inside us, as we need to be servants. We need to serve the community. And then we don't think about, oh, nobody's praising me, or nobody's accepting my efforts, or you don't think about those things because you're a servant. You have that mentality. You think this is just for the future.
That's
Whenever
right.
the fruits come, they come, but it's not even for me to see.
That's right.
And if we have that mentality, we won't ever be disappointed. We'll never be upset about when people aren't accepting my efforts, or nobody's thought about this project, or nobody's encouraging my project, because it's a selfless act.
That's right.
And the future generations, inshallah, will benefit.
I think defining things is very important. And when we say friends, I think that we most often are going to think about the conventional way that people are friends. That is often boundless and doesn't necessarily take into consideration the guidelines or the ethos of our religious tradition. We're described as awliya to one another in the Quran, as friends, if you will, in the Quran, as caretakers of one another. And I think it's very important that if we can't be friends, as I'll try to define in a minute, how are we to be a community? It's sad, at least in the States, that often brother or sister is used as a precursor in a sentence where we're going to go ride roughshod on somebody about something they're doing wrong. So if someone says to you, brother, you're like, what's going to come next? You know, sister, there's 4 hairs sticking out of the left side of your hijab, right? So it becomes almost like we have almost adopted a type of like enmity, a type of, it's really sad, almost a type of like subtle dislike, as if that's part of religiosity. Now obviously, we are mindful of gender specificity, and we're mindful of adab, and we're mindful of sharia. So for example, never being alone, and not being in a space where there's not a third party. In the conventional definition of friends, that kind of throws out a lot of, in other words, like, is there a reason for us to be having a conversation? Is there mutual benefit? Is it in the spirit of building something? Is it in the spirit of aiding one another? Yes. Are we going to get in the car and ride alone and hang out and go to the beach together? In Islam, the answer would be no, because it's a recognition that there is something called sexual attraction, right? Having said that, I think in our community, we have gone way too far in assuming that every situation is a sexually charged situation, or that the only possible modality of men and women vis-a-vis one another is that of sexual objectification. Because it presumes so much that if, someone, says, Assalamu alaikum, oh, he's trying to holler at me. It's like, that's a greeting of peace, Assalamu alaikum, sister. It is not like, hey, honey, what's your number? That's not what it's supposed to bring about. But again, we have developed a culture that presumes the sexually charged situation where even if a person, And so I think that we've got to be careful in balancing all of that. But by a conventional definition, people say, oh, we can't be friends. I mean, it depends on how you define that. And if it means that you say, salam alaikum, alaikum salam, how are you, how's your family? I have a multitude, countless number of Muslim women that I consider my friends. I don't interact with them in the way that conventional friends probably interact, but, you know, it would be dishonest for me to say that I don't consider I could count literally dozens of sisters, because they're my sisters. And I love them as my sisters. And I would give my blood for them as my sisters. And I want to protect them as my sisters. So, and again, like, is the only type of love a sexual love? Like, if I love somebody, does that mean, you know, I love you and I also want to jump in the sack with you? No, that's not. No, I mean, no, I'm sorry for being the, you know, the awkward American here, but really, why does it always presume that? Do you know what I'm saying? It's like, it's really, really unfortunate. You know, and let's be mindful, too, that the Prophet ﷺ was a disruptor. And he came and challenged negative social norms, especially around gender expectations that the Arabs had. And let me be clear. When Amr ibn al-As comes to the Prophet ﷺ, he says, "Oh, Rasulullah, who's the most beloved people of all to you?" Who did he say? He said, Aisha. And he said her name, which Arabs, you know, they don't really do that. And he mentions his wife, and he mentions her name. And then he said, Thumma men. And he actually thought that he was the most beloved of people to the Prophet ﷺ. Then he said what? Abuha, her father. Why didn't he just say Abu Bakr? Are you all listening to me? You're not listening. Why didn't he say Abu Bakr? Because Abuha is attributing who's his closest companion to her as his wife. You know what I'm saying? By saying her father. He said, Thumma men, and he goes, and he says, and he mentioned the number of people. He wasn't one of them. And he said, I wish I never had asked him. Because the reason he was asking was because he actually thought, what? That he was the most beloved of people to the Prophet. So what I'm saying is that, like, if we mean friends, that means we're going to, you know what I mean, kick it in inappropriate ways? No. If it means that we love one another in a spirit of mutual fraternity and sorority and love for the sake of Allah. And I'll be honest with you, the 1990s when I converted to Islam, Muslim sisters on campus felt safe. You know why? Because wasn't nobody going to get anywhere near them. And it wasn't going to be a protest, it wasn't going to be, a Facebook post. You touch one of our sisters, we'll lay you on the ground, period. End of story. No, I'm serious. No, I'm serious. Because, you know, it's just like our sisters are out wearing hijab in society. You know, there was a sister who was being accosted on the street, a brother who had embraced Islam in the prison, and that just comes with a certain package. Saw that happen, jumped out the car, laid the dude out, flat. Laid him out, walked her to her car, and walked back and picked him up and said, I'm sorry, but you were touching my Muslim sister. Never met her before. So I think a bigger question to ask would be, do our sisters feel safe around us? Do they feel like we're here to protect you, not here to sexually objectify you, call you fitna, get out of the way because you're disturbing my deep spiritual state by your femininity? Like, what does that really say? That says something, that's a very layered, you know what I'm saying, conversation. So, yeah, but if people are looking for dispensations to act and behave in ways that are inappropriate and not consistent with Islam, the question isn't whether we can be friends, it's whether we can be mature, whether we can be adults, whether we can maintain adab, not, you know what I'm saying? But this, again, is a can of worms. It has a whole bunch of other stuff connected to it around just the unfortunate disequilibrium in the Muslim community around sexuality, period, you know, and even a safe space to even, if you talk to Muslim youth in our community about, have you ever had a conversation about sex or sexuality with an elder in your community? The overwhelming majority of them that I've talked to are like, absolutely not. Those were no birds and bees. The Prophet used to discuss those things with his community in a beautiful, prophetic way, so that people didn't become, we don't adopt the ethos around sexuality, around gender, of other communities that are not consistent with the spirit of our religion. We don't have a Judeo-Christian Protestant ethic around sexuality in Islam. You know, but we've adopted these things and they've crept in and we've taken, and we've become so dislocated, you know. And the sad part is, we say, no, you can't be friends with a Muslim sister. But the brother going to be up in class, sit right next to Sally, or Joanne, or Terry, or whoever. Jude, hey Jude, he's like, hey Jude, right? Don't make it bad, sing a sad song and make it better, right? So he's in class with Jude, Hey Jude, did you bring the notes from the class? Yeah, you know, in Islam, women are revered and so on and so forth. You should think about taking your shahada, Jude. Right, whatever. Then he walks out of class, locked elbows, sees Sister Jalila, hypothetical Jalila, if you're here, Jalila, I'm not talking about you. Sees Jalila, and he arm locked with Jude, throws his arm down, she sees her, You know what I'm saying? Think about that. So subhanAllah, mashallah, you and Jude are like peas in a pod. But the Muslim sister who's modest, who's, you know what I'm saying? And understands the shari'ah, you won't even greet her? How are we going to feel, especially on college campuses, Muslims feeling like that? Now, am I saying, please understand, before anybody tweets anything, am I saying that we should throw the baby out with the bathwater? Absolutely not. Be mindful of the edab, you know what I'm saying? Have edab, say salam. You know, I'm actually, after some of the hate crimes that have been happening in the States, like I'm sure you heard about the very fortunate death of the 3 young people in Chapel Hill. That week after that, I started doing this really odd thing, where I would just say salam to Muslims, sisters and otherwise. And you see, like, just assalamu alaikum. And Muslims are almost kind of like, don't say that in public, man. Like, you know what I'm saying? They're going to know we're Muslim. They already know we're Muslim. Do you know we're Muslim? Do you know that I'm Muslim and I'm here for you? So I would just say assalamu alaikum. People get weirded out. That may the universal peace of God Almighty be upon you and His blessing and His mercy. And the response is defense. You know what I'm saying? So I know that you didn't ask 30 of the questions that I tried to answer. And I'm sorry for being so verbose. Please correct me, sister. I apologize. I think your question answers her second question. No, come on, she has. The marriage thing.
Marriage, I think marriage in itself has its own challenges. I don't think there's a right and a wrong answer to it. If you're asking from an Islamic perspective, then then Ustad will be able better to answer that, inshallah. I think it is a challenge. I think generally across the board, marriage, like Ustad was saying earlier, has become the major issue for everybody nowadays. Getting married, finding the right spouse. And I think there's a number of things that are really important before you get married. And I think from a counselling perspective, pre-marriage counselling or pre-marriage understanding of how to communicate with your spouse, how to be with another person. I think what happens is in families, we don't talk about these things. Like Ustad was saying before, we don't talk about sexuality, we don't talk about relationships, we don't talk about... So what happens is young people, younger generations, what they're doing is they're finding other sources of information. And yes, there is an addiction to pornography. There's a huge issue with addiction to pornography. They're asking friends, they're watching videos, they're watching TV, they're finding their information about what is a wholesome relationship from the wrong sources. So I think us as parents, as educators, we need to then have those conversations with our children of how to, what is the right etiquette, what is the right manners, what to expect, and have those open conversations about sexuality, about intimacy. Because I think people go into marriages and they're like, what's all this about? And they don't know how to be with that other person. They can't connect with that person, and all they think about is just the act, and that's all it is. It's just you do it, you get in there, you do your business, and then you get out of it. And do you know, I know I've kind of put it very bluntly, but because as a counsellor, I get cases all the time where people are having so many issues because they can't maintain their marriages because they don't understand the concept about intimacy and relationships and building that connection with your spouse. I think the second thing is not only educating your children, but then also I've kind of lost my train of thought now, but educating your children, being open with them, educating yourself, and then it goes into them finding the right partner that then connects with that person. And and I think that is the challenge in itself, but then if you have that kind of understanding, and when you get to the point of I've got to find a spouse now, you'll have a better understanding of what you're looking for. And it goes back to what I was talking about when I was talking about knowing yourself and knowing who you are and your own identity and what it is you want. It's not materialistic and aesthetic, it's more about what is it you need as a human being. And if you can find someone that can give you that can mirror who you are, then inshallah, then you'll be able to find the ideal person, inshallah. I hope that...
Those are beautiful answers, mashallah. Just adding to that a little bit, I feel that from my community, I think my women are a bit shy, and I think we need to stop, like Sister Aisha said when she was up here, and she was saying, stop defining your character or making your character on what other people think or what other people say of you. You need to start thinking, you know what, I'm going to go to a marriage event. You know those marriage events that people do and you get to meet people? Go to them. A lot of people say to me all the time, I want to get married, I want to get married. As soon as I place a brother in front of them, they freak out. They completely freak out. And I'm like, what's wrong? What's wrong with him? No, not him. And no, just pick another one, not him. Why? Why are you freaking out? Why are you shut? People will say something. He knows somebody I know, and somebody knows someone, and then he's my uncle's son, and he just... So, it's along with it, he's from my community, people will find out that we were getting to know each other. Who cares? You need to get married. That's the base of the whole situation. Get married. Don't be shy about putting yourself out there in a respectable manner. But then when people bring people to, like a person who is looking for marriage as well, when they bring that to you, embrace that person in the sense of think with an open mind, who cares what anybody else thinks, I need to get to know this person. I need to get to know them. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Don't be scared of being rejected. Don't be worried about things like that, because these are the things that hinder you. The dunya hinders you. It's what people will say or how you will feel when you get rejected and all these things. Put yourself out there. Go to marriage events. Go to all of these places. And then inshallah you will find someone. And you have to understand yourself. You have to know yourself as a person to know what kind of person you want. So focus on yourself first. Know who you are. As Sister Aisha was saying, be content in yourself, and then you will be able to pick out the right person. And obviously not have too many high expectations, and don't think he'll be, prince with all the gold in the world and handsome. Just, have realistic goals and realistic expectations from him. But focus on a man who fears Allah. He doesn't have to have all of the other qualities, but just somebody who's focusing on Allah, or his intention or his mind is always on Allah. Just try and find someone like that. It doesn't matter about anything else. If his goal is Allah, then he will find his way. Inshallah, he will find his way. Ustadh?
I think they answered the first question brilliantly. And one thing I think as a Muslim community, we've got to give ourselves permission to be a community that's in flux, and we're a fluid community. We're trying to find ourselves. We're between generations. We're between cultures. It's going to be complex, and so people need to be okay with the fact that it's complex and that it's not easy. Having said that, and at the risk of sounding like I'm spiritually bypassing, because I'm really not, people need to pray sincerely to Allah. And I don't mean this in the kind of, just make dua sense. I mean it like actually really pray to Allah, and do the adhkar and do the things that bring about risk. Reading Surah Al-Waqi'ah after, also praying the 2 rakats of dua and making dua. And really praying, like actually praying that Allah bring them a good spouse. It's one of the things that like my teachers would always make dua for their students when they're there, that whoever's not married, Allah give them a good spouse. And then if you can be like a good matchmaker, that's really good. I'll be honest with you, it's one of the things I just realized right now as you were talking, I actually can relate to like, there's some people who just like can't do da'wah, like they just don't know how to talk to non-Muslims. No, they just can't do it. I get it, because I can't matchmake. Like I don't like, people call me all the time, like, and people send me emails like describing themselves, like find somebody, and I know a lot of Muslims, but I'm not good at it for some reason. I can't I have a friend of mine, though, actually a teacher of mine, Imam Zayd, who you guys probably heard of, Allah preserve him. He's like, in addition to all of the other accolades of being a Muslim superhero, may Allah bless him, he's like a really brilliant matchmaker. Like he finds...
go to now.
No.
Tell him Usama Canon.
No, that's not what I'm saying. He'll like find people that are in like 2 different countries and places, and he's subhanAllah, and there are like several people that worked out. So if you're a good matchmaker, that's a great way to help another Muslim, you know what I mean? But we have to be honest that you're dealing with the marriageable male Muslim pool. In other words, the number of eligible male Muslims compared to the marriageable Muslim lady pool. There's already disparity there. Then you say, I have to marry someone from X country, from Y state, and Z village, and, Z village, and A street, from B tribe, the son of C, who happens to look like a Muslim Justin Bieber, who's a Prophet of Quran. Yeah, you're making life hard for yourself. And I'll be honest with you, people, like a lot of students I know that are like not married yet, I'm shocked, because they're like, they'll meet someone and they're good, and they're smart, and they're intelligent, a good Muslim, and they're just like, he wasn't my type. It's like, yeah, he wasn't, you know what I'm saying? Like, he wasn't a Muslim version of Drake or whatever, I get it, but, you know what I'm saying? But like, he doesn't mean, I don't know, it's a short answer, I don't know. May Allah make it easy. The second part of your question, there's different opinions, and you feel like one of them is accurate. Assuming here, for the sake of our conversation, that they're two valid opinions from trustworthy scholarship. In other words, it's not something you read on Wikipedia randomly, or that someone, no really, that you just like someone tweeted it and they go, this is an opinion. Because when we talk about ikhtilaf, difference of opinion, we're talking about difference of opinion of scholars of Islam. Not Zayd and Amr differ, or John and Jim differ, but like when two of the imams of Islam differ, and you've heard about that difference of opinion from reputable sources. In other words, it's a valid ikhtilaf. In that, and in general, follow the advice of your beloved sallallahu alayhi wasallam, who said, istafti qalbaka, ask your heart. The Prophet said that. A person came to the Prophet, and he was going to ask him a question. And he said to him, Jitta tas'alu an al-bir. You came to ask about piety, about righteousness. The man had a question. And the Prophet, the Habib sallallahu said to him, istafti qalbak, ask your heart. And in one narration it says, walau aftoka wa aftoka wa aftok. Even if people told you, and they told you, and they told you, they gave you fatwa 3 times, and you still have to ask your heart. Unfortunately, because of a type of hyper-legalism that has crept into certain Muslim circles, even so-called traditional circles, a hyper-legalism. We've come into a situation where people no longer trust the fact that Allah Azza wa Jalla gave you common sense. It doesn't mean that you are a personal fatwa factory. It doesn't mean that you get to make up rules. But it means when you know of a difference of opinion, something just doesn't feel right to you, or something feels really right to you, that's very, very important. Because at the end of the day, you're going to answer to Allah by yourself. You're going to answer to Allah in front of Allah by yourself. And you can't say, well, they said, people said this, people said that. Allah wants you to learn, to have a mind, to use your heart, to be well-studied and well-read. Raise the bar of Islamic literacy. Because otherwise people just come and say, and there's so-called scholars who say things, have the mujma' alayh. This is agreed upon by consensus. Yeah, of the 4 guys who studied at your madrasa. No, I'm serious. Well, they say this is unanimously agreed upon. And it's not unanimously agreed upon. It's not even unanimously agreed upon of the people of their school of law. Let alone all 4 schools of Sunni law. Let alone the ummah. But people say it's unanimously agreed upon. So you feel stuck in a corner and then you don't know. Ask around. Ask around, but trust your heart. That would be my answer to your question. And that's why I asked our daughter here what she felt in response to what they were saying, because you had a visceral reaction. You feel like it's wrong. With all of the sensitivities, politically and socially and otherwise, around the LGBTQ community and that movement, I believe it's very important that Muslims maintain permission to feel like it's wrong. You have a right to say, I disagree with that, and that's not the ethic that I share. I don't have that shared opinion around sexuality. I feel like it's wrong. It's very important, daughter, that you differentiate between the sin and the sinner, or the act or the actor. In other words, while you may vehemently condemn any type of sexual inequity, and this is the other thing Muslims need to be clear about. Muslims will rant and rave about condemning homosexuality while having nothing to say about sexual inequities in heterosexual communities. Well, they're both haram. Do you know what I'm saying? And the root of the prohibition of homosexuality actually lies in the prohibition of fornication. You know what I'm saying? So Muslims have to be clear about that. So while we would condemn the act, we do not condemn individuals. And we believe that while things are wrong or impermissible, it also does not remove one from the fold of Islam. So we have to be clear about that. So you feeling that it's wrong, if that's your natural, true response, alhamdulillah, that you have a moral compass that feels that way. It's very important that you not become insensitive, and that you not, especially in your language and dealing and talking with other people. I know a lot of Muslims who are struggling with sexuality. And I had a call, I'm also a counselor, but I don't tell people that because otherwise I would have less time than I already do. This brother called my office one night and he says, I'm Muslim and I'm gay and I believe that it's wrong and I don't want to do it. Can Allah forgive me? He said, what? Can Allah forgive me? I told him the verse from the Quran. Allah does not forgive the one associate partners to him, but forgives other than that for whom he wills. You know what he said to me? He said, thank you for telling me that, because I asked this question to another Muslim and he said to me, you might as well keep doing what you're doing because Allah's never going to forgive you anymore. This is the type of nonsense that people hear. This is the type of nonsense that people hear. How are you creating a path for people to rectify their actions? So if you believe it's wrong, as we believe that act, like other sexual inequities, is wrong, you feel that. But it's very important that you're able to distinguish between the act and the actor. Now, in closing, there was an interfaith panel a rabbi, sounds like the beginning of a bad joke, a rabbi, a priest, an imam. The imam was a friend of mine, a junior imam, young scholar, and some other faith communities represented. Someone from the crowd asked this question, what does your faith say about homosexuality? And the rabbi and the priest and the other folks totally skirted around it because of the lobby of the LGBTQ community, especially where we live in the Bay Area. And they were like, no, they just kind of, the imam said what I just said. We believe it's wrong, but we don't condemn individuals. We believe that the act is a sin. 2 lesbian ladies came up to him after in the crowd and said, I just want to thank you for being the only honest person on the panel. Do you know what I'm saying? Because Muslims got to be careful of being pushed into relativist kind of the need to respond to other people's frames. We believe what we believe. And, but we also don't want to be predatory or disrespectful to other people.
So
do you know what I'm saying?
Hate the act, but not the person who's acting.
Yeah, that's Muslim for we've gone too long. Take the mic out. Empower Muslim women. Allahu Akbar. Brother, shut up!
Looking at me.
Stop talking about
I don't want to be. I'm sorry.
I know, I see the hand motions they're giving. They're like, cut, pull the mic. They're going to cut shit, close the curtain, take the mic out the Americans' hands. Allahu Akbar.
I was under pressure. I have a bigger team. I'm sure everybody knows. You know, alhamdulillah, I was thinking that Q&A is going to be very short and awkward because a lot of time Q&As, people tend to just finish the question off real quick, and I'm so grateful for the 2 speakers that have actually elaborated and gone into it. Jazakallah.
To a blameworthy extent.
No. It was beautiful and it's brilliant. I know you must have so many other questions. I have a list of questions, and I've never hosted an event before, as you can tell.
No, you did a great job.
Just
Give her a round of applause.
The only reason was so I could ask you questions. I could ask questions to the panel. So I have so many questions, but we don't have time, and we've run over time. So Jazakallah to everyone who has come. Thank you so much for being patient, because I know this has gone over time. Thank you so much to our speakers. Thank you so much for Ustadha Usama Canon, who has come all the way from America. Allah reward each and every one of you, and may this gathering be written from amongst the gatherings who remembered Allah. Allah's name is mentioned. Jazakallah.